on this trial. Let's bring in Doug Burns, a former federal prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney. Dan Shore is also with us. He is a former prosecutor and a private investigator. So let's begin by playing some of the sound that we were not able to hear during the previous segment with Adam Housley, because there were some critical moments in the courtroom as the prosecution tried to drill down on her story and her timeline. Listen.
You indicated in response to a juror's question, right, that the shooting happened and he went down, right?
Yes.
And that you were able to roll away, correct? Or get up?
Yes.
And you stood up, and as you're getting up is when he threatened you, right?
Yes, that's when he verbally threatened me.
At no time in response to that question did you ever indicate that Mr. Alexander's hands were in contact with any knife, did you?
No, I did not.
And given the time constraints here and the fact that you didn't know where the knife was, it would have been impossible for you not to have the knife with you when the attack happened, right?
Objection, argumentative.
I won't.
I don't understand that question. Sorry.
It would have been impossible to, in response to a juror question, you gave a scenario. That scenario would have been impossible to happen unless you already had the knife immediately with you, right?
Yes, argumentative.
I won't.
Well, since that's not how it happened, it's definitely not impossible.
Well, that was Jodi Arias' answer to the prosecutor's question. Doug Burns, fascinating final day of testimony, and 18 days in all for her. But a fascinating final day. 62 seconds between two of the final shots, apparently when she dropped the camera, and the prosecutor made very good use of that.
It's a fascinating dynamic. First of all, you don't very often see a defendant on the witness stand for 18 days. I mean, I've been practicing law, trying cases 27 years. I can't remember an instance of that. Second of all, while I know Dan will, come in and say, look, the prosecutor slaughtered her and she lied twice, and we've been hearing the same refrains, I am going to say, Dan, that he's playing a little bit of a dangerous game on some level, because number one, his affect and his demeanor and his indignation.
He's pretty angry.
We don't know how that's hitting the jury. He's angry. And then number two, the problem is the old swinging for the fences, which is to insist on first-degree murder. I don't know whether in the charging conference they're going to talk about a lesser included.
All right, that 62-second thing that I was talking about earlier, I don't know too many murders in which the crime is partially documented, maybe accidentally, on digital photographs. But she apparently was taking photos of him in the shower. Then she dropped the camera. The camera apparently went off, and there's a shot of his body already. That's supposedly what caused him to go after her. So in 62 seconds, the prosecutor said, she takes a shot of him, drops the camera, he gets enraged, she runs down the hall, grabs the gun out of the closet, shoots him, and it all happened in 62 seconds. Couldn't have happened, or so the prosecutor said.
It defies common sense. It's important to remember that she has made many stories, always trying to conform with the evidence. First, she said she was never there. Then, when it was established that she was at the scene, she said two masked intruders came in and killed Travis Alexander. Now, when we know that she committed the killing, she's saying, well, yes, I did it, but it was in self-defense, and I don't remember all of it. But it can't explain all the evidence. It can't explain all the injuries. It can't explain the timeline. It just defies common sense. And I think it's clear she's going to be convicted. The question is, will she also get the death penalty?
Some of the best questions have come from the jurors themselves. Take a listen to this one.
Still felt threatened after having shot Mr. Alexander. Why did you use a knife instead of just shooting again?
Well, I know that I dropped the gun when he hit me, and I don't know where the gun went, because when we fell, it was no longer in my hands, and I don't really remember picking up the knife. I just remember feeling threatened, and he was the immediate threat.
She doesn't remember an awful lot.
She can't remember things, supposedly, because there's no reasonable explanation for the physical evidence, the injuries, the timeline. There's no plausible scenario that explains it all, so she has to say she doesn't remember. It defies all common sense.
But Doug, you seem to be saying that if you were prosecuting this case, you would offer the jury lesser included offenses.
I definitely
because
would.
You're afraid that if they only go for a first-degree murder conviction, she might walk?
No, I think jurors are a lot smarter than you think, and if you remember the Boston nanny case, and I've mentioned that before, you know, the prosecutors were offered a lesser included jury instruction. They turned it down. She was found not guilty. Jurors actually are relatively comfortable, as crazy as it sounds. Once they convince themselves, they charged her with the wrong offense. I would have been perfectly happy to conclude, by the way, consistent with common sense, that this was a highly emotional encounter and a highly emotional killing. So I just think it's a little bit scary to turn around and swing for the fences.
All right. We have to say goodbye. Again, we'll continue to watch this case as they get ready to charge the jury. Dan Shore, Doug Burns, thank you both.
Thank you.